Hello, this is Don Hall. This is at Don Hall Works YouTube channel. On my channel I have over 100 videos of how to with clay. So in this video we're going to talk about the bottom of your work. How to put on a foot, how to make pottery without a foot at all. And so let's get started. Here's 3 pots that have pretty much a traditional kind of foot. This is a beautiful tea bowl by Krista Assad, very accomplished potter who made a somewhat traditional style. And here's a tea bowl that I made that is basically the same thing, but a little bit smaller. This one's from a friend in Nicaragua who throws a foot on the bottom and it's an extended out. There are 3 pots where the foot is actually diminishing in size. Here's one I made. It's got a foot made on the potter's wheel that was trimmed. And here's another one of my pots that is, the foot is almost disappearing. And here's a beautiful pot by Stephen Kilborn, and he's made the foot completely disappear entirely. So we're going to go over and demonstrate how to make all of these. Here's a unique way to make a foot by Lauren Lukens. He makes a very textured foot. Here's a pot by Jackie Bonson who makes her foot out of textured clay. And here's a very unique technique to make the bottom of your pots interesting by Kathy Newland, my good friend who actually puts feet for her feet. We'll also talk about how to put a foot on something that isn't thrown on a potter's wheel, like a freeform plate, raku plate that I made, or a textured box that has a 5-sided foot on it. So let's go ahead and start making some of this stuff. All right, to get this video started, we're going to do a more traditional way to make a foot. And to do that, I'm going to go up to Quiet Kilns up in Murphy's, California, and visit with the pottery instructor up there, Amanda Mall, who is going to trim some pots for us so that we can see how it's done. She has a real interesting technique where she uses a push pin to make sure she gets the bottom the right thickness. Then we'll come back to my studio and I'll demonstrate several other unique ways to make a foot, make the bottom of your pot, and make it look more unique. So let's get started. Well, let's head up to Quail and see Amanda. All right, so now for these feet on the bottom of our pot, I'm up here at Quiet Kilns with Amanda Mall, who's the pottery instructor up here, and she's going to demonstrate for us 3 different ways to finish off the bottom of your work.
Okay, so I'm going to trim. My first bowl is 1.5 pounds, and these are my favorite tools. A little shorty, which is a Kemper. I think it's an R4. I like to use the straight side to make my step, and then I'll use the other Kemper tool with the curve to round the pot. So here we go. I don't like to use the full thickness of the tool, usually about 3/4 of the tool to make my step. And the beautiful thing about trimming is that I find it's like a dance. You'll do a little bit and then you'll do a little more and then you'll go back. So I've created a nice little step. It's going to create a nice curve using the curved edge of the tool. And I'm going to blend the pot into itself. And again, as I mentioned, the trimming is kind of like a dance. You'll trim a part of it and you'll lean back and look at the profile. And I feel that my foot is a little wide, so I'm going to go in a little bit further. I have to tell you a little tip. New students tend to drift with their tool. I'm going to caution you, do not drift. Always keep your tool in the same stationary place, because if you drift, you're going to trim an oval foot and scratch your head and wonder why. So there's a step. I'm going to hold it flat. I'm going to start angling it down, and I'm going to blend into the existing pot. You want to keep your wheel moving at a rather quick speed, not full out fast, but at just a good pace. It helps the momentum. The centrifugal force helps, and always keep your two hands connected. Gives you a good sense of balance. So I've got a nice pretty curve, and I normally will look at the horizon of it to see if it's the shape that I want. Come back and just re-identify that outside ring. And the rule for me and my students is you never do the inside of the foot until your outside is complete. So I'm going to go in now, use the corner edge of the small tool, create a nice little groove. I might angle it out just a little bit to flare it, and then angle in to cut that little dollop of clay off. And I'll start from the center, and I'm skimming the top. I'm not pushing. One of the things that will happen is if you push, you'll end up denting your pot. So I'm just skimming across the top, and I understand that you don't ever want the inside lower than the outside of your foot. So that's a rule of thumb. If your foot is so wide, you want the inside to be roughly the same. Otherwise, it looks a little imbalanced. Okay, I'll just put a little finish on that. Shave off the foot area. Pick up all the little gremlins that are in there. Little pieces of clay that we don't want. And then you can just burnish the edges with your finger. If your clay is, in fact, soft enough. Sometimes people trim a little bit harder. I tend to trim a little bit softer. And I like that center floor to be nice and even across. And there you go, that's one style. Okay, this is a 3-pound bowl. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier. I wanted to just show you what my explanation is, where to put your foot. So I find that if you look inside your bowl and you see where does the floor become the wall, that's where your foot should go. So I'll usually put a little fingernail mark on the bottom so I know where my foot ring will start. And I also have a little tip that is, if you use push pins, you can cut them to the size and the thickness. This is about the thickness of the wall. And you really want your whole pot to be the same thickness. So I'm going to use a push pin in the middle. By the way, don't forget to seal it after you take the push pin out. And then I'm going to put the push pin over on the side. It'll be on the inside. But this is the thickest area that we leave the clay down. So I'm going to trim with these push pins in, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it when it hits the pin. It's tick, 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 tick. So we'll hopefully have that action happen. Okay, we'll get centered. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with the same process using the small tool. I'm going to go into that line. Clay's a little bit wet. I just threw these pots this morning. They got a little bit of sunshine. So I'm getting a little bit of stickiness, but trying to control my hand a little bit better. Okay, so I have created a step, and now I'm going to round that out. Put the curved side at the base, and then I start angling it down to blend into the existing pot. Okay, my line is still about 1/4 of an inch away from where the floor becomes a wall. So I've taken the bulk and now I'm going to go in a little bit further. Almost there. Okay, we'll switch again, getting the curve. And I like to put, sometimes I'll put a skirt on this, I call it. And that is where I'll put a small groove. And then I'll trim down from there. I think it adds a little bit of interest. And I will not wax. I will wax that whole area all the way down for the skirt. So this will all be just raw clay. And if you have a nice, beautiful clay, it really shows up nicely. I also bring my tool upside down and I'll make a little undercut so that when you're in the bucket, you can hold on to it by the foot. A little sticky. Clean up the little gremlins. And then I'll angle this top in a little bit. And now we're ready to go for the inside. Create our step. Inside. And hopefully we'll hear that tick, tick, tick of the push pin. I use push pins. You can cut the size. It's a little hard to get them both exact. I think I have two that are about the same. But it helps you to control the thickness of your clay. And you really just want to skim across when you're trimming. You don't want to really push down, otherwise you'll take too much of the clay. I'm going to come back with a little bit bigger tool. Still haven't hit my push pin. I sometimes wonder if the push pin fell out, so I'll take the pot off and it doesn't fall out. There it is. There's a little mark right here. You can't see it, but as I'm trimming, I can feel the little tick, tick, tick of the push pin. Give it a nice little cleanup. You can burnish the edges with your fingers. Sometimes I'll trim it round, but I find the finger is sufficient for burnishing. And there you go. That's number. There's the pins. Again, make sure that you rub those little holes out, otherwise you'll have a leaky pot. Because this is a bigger pot, I'm using a different tool. I've been enjoying using this mud tool, using the curved side, and that allows me to take quite a bit off. And because this is a bigger bowl, I'm going to make a bigger foot. And it'll have a nice, beautiful curve. I've made my pencil mark, or my fingernail mark, as to where as to where I think the foot should be. And now I'm going to come down at a lower part of the foot and just start shaving this bulk away and blend it into the existing pot. And by the way, a lot of times when people learn about trimming, they think they only have to go one direction. Many times I'll come up and trim as well. So you're not locked into just one way. Okay, so there's the base of my foot, and what I'm going to do is take my opposite side of my small tool, and I'm just going to curve this in, take some of the bulk out, give it a little shape. And again, I can burnish it with my finger. That will soften the edges. I like the crisp look, but once it fires, you don't really want to have a sharp edge. And the inside is basically the same thing. We're just going to create that groove. And start cleaning the inside out. And because I have that push pin, I'm not going to run through the bottom. I'm going to hit the little tick, tick, tick mark. Again, a little sticky. When you have a wide platter, you want to probably consider having a double foot, which means you'll trim a foot ring here and then also have one out here. For something this small, I don't find that I need to have a double foot. But if I make a really wide base platter or large plates, you'd probably like to do that. Well, that's a couple of different styles of foot rings that I've made for you. I hope you enjoy them and give them a try and try the push pin technique. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda and Quail Kilns. I'm back in my studio now, and I'm going to use a wiggle wire to decorate the bottom of a piece. All right, to do this part, to make the wiggle wire bottom on my pot, I'm going to use two homemade tools. This one is an old shelf bracket that I just bent the corner over. That's to help me clean up this side. And then I'm also going to use a wiggle wire, which is in fact a wire that I made by taking the spring out of a ballpoint pen and pull it out and extend it and just nailed it to a couple little pieces of wood. The wheel turning very slowly, I'll just clean this up around the bottom a little bit, add a little water, and use my shelf support to clean up this Okay. Now I'm going to take my wiggle wire and move it back and forth as the wheel turns. Now I'm going to just let this sit, let it dry out enough. It's leather hard now. Let's see what it looks like. To finish this up, I'm just going to add a little water here on it. Just clean up this edge a little tiny bit. And there you have it. This is probably the simplest of all the ways to take care of the bottom of your pot. This one just came right off the potter's wheel. I made sure that the bottom was the thickness that I wanted. And I just cut it off with a wire. Now all I need for this is my finger. I just get it all nice and cleaned up around the bottom, around the edge with my finger, and then I simply give it a tap. Tap, tap, tap. And all I'm trying to accomplish here is making the bottom of the cup indented so that when it sits on the table, it isn't the entire bottom of the pot is only touching. We want just the edge, the outside edge, to rest on the table. Basically, that's all there is to it. I'm going to put a bottom on a cylinder. I didn't make this one on the potter's wheel. I made it on the slab roller. Rolled out a slab and put it together. And then I put a texture on it with the cylinder seal. And it kind of looks a little bit like wood. So now what I want to do is cut out a circle and put it on here. I cut out this circle to give me an idea of how big the bottom of this mug should be. All right, now I'm going to figure out where the middle will be, about here. I'm going to score and slip all the way around the outside. For this, I'm just using some water to get it nice and wet. And I'm going to score it. And I'm going to do the same thing on this. I'm going to score the edge, the side that's going to connect. Now it's the fun part here is I just sort of gradually fold this over by rolling the pot around and around. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to lose that wood texture. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to just roll this tight with my little roller here. This is a tool I use, you can get at the paint store. It's for putting wallpaper on. All right, so now I got that pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and add that texture back again because some of it got a little bit crushed down. So there you got it. A totally different way to put a bottom onto your cup. All right, this one time I'm going to actually trim the pot a little bit and make a very slight indentation for a foot. Most of the work is done by this kind of a tool, but that's basically all I do. Just a very hint of a foot and enough to push the middle of it down away. In this segment, I'm going to throw a cylinder, and for the foot, I'm going to throw a foot on the bottom. So when I opened it up, I didn't go all the way down. I left a fairly good amount of clay. I'd guess about 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch of clay on the bottom. And I'm going to use that to throw the foot later on. So when I get this thrown here, I'm going to come back. I'm going to let it dry on my wheel a bit to leather hard. Then I'm going to turn it over and throw it on the bottom. All right, here it is. I've dried it out enough so it'll stand up, but it's still fairly soft on the bottom. And I'm going to see now if I can compress this and find a way to throw a bit of a foot on the bottom. Yeah, that seems to work all right. You can get, depending on how much clay you leave on the bottom, you can actually make quite a large foot, or you could make a smaller one. One thing nice about this is there's not a whole lot of scrap left. You have a nice foot there, but you don't have all this scrap from trimming with a trimming tool. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. For this one, I'm going to use Kathy Newland's idea of putting feet on it. I'm not going to put 6 on like she did, but I'm only going to do 3 And I have a little dent here where I'm going to put them to go. I like to dig it out a little bit so it's got a round bed to land in, so that it will stay on there better. I think they stay better when it's round ball into a round hole. And I'm going to make sure I score and slip really well and put these in here. I think that'll stay pretty good. One last thing I like to do when I do these, when I put feet on like that, I have a flat board that I set on here, push down a little bit, so I press on all of them evenly, and hopefully it'll give it a nice flat landing spot. So there you go. 3 feet, I believe, has less wobble than if you use 4 or more. I'm making a classic tea bowl here. I'm leaving a really good amount down on the bottom. All right, I'm going to let it dry now, and we'll flip it over and we'll trim a classic tea bowl type of foot on it. All right, I'm going to trim this in the somewhat traditional style of most people think of when they think of a tea bowl. Okay, now we're going to try a cutaway foot on it. This is one that was shown to me by my good buddy Pam Ackles, who makes this kind of a foot. It starts out pretty much just like you would do any other kind of a foot, only it gets cut off later in between and really ends up very much like the last one where we put 3 feet on it. This is going to end up with 3 as well. It's got quite a thick bottom, so hopefully I won't cut through to the other side. I'm going to take this over to my workbench now and cut it off. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to mark it at about 1/3 and about 1/3, like so. And then I'm going to make another mark to try to figure out about where the foot will go to. You'll understand this in a second. Now where I've made these marks, I'm going to cut away here, like so. And try to be fairly consistent. Yeah, something like that. And I'll come back around and clean it up. This gets rid of a lot of that excess weight that we had at the bottom. Just clean it up, round off the corners, and then you have a pot that only sits on 3 places. So there's another technique that we can use to make an interesting bottom. All right, for this one, we're going to make a foot. We're going to put a foot on a piece that is not made on a potter's wheel, and it's sort of free-formed. This is some raku plates that I do. I like to make them all odd shapes. I roll out a slab on a slab roller with texture on it, and then throw it over a hump mold. There's a hump mold under here. And so what I do now is I take this, I go to the potter's wheel, and I throw a foot on it. So let's do that. Okay, to attach a foot on here, I can get it nice and wet and score it real good all the way around. And I have already scored the bottom of the foot that I'm going to attach and got it nice and wet. Looks like I got plenty more than I need here. When I cut this off, I like to cut it off at an angle. It gives the 2 pieces more surface area to grab onto each other. All right. So that's how I put a foot on a plate that isn't symmetrical. Seems to work fine. So here it is. Now, in order to get this to look something like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint porcelain on it, and then I'm going to paint with underglaze. I'll paint some birds on it and bisque fire it, then raku fire it, and that's how it goes from here to here. All right, last one. Throw in a bonus for you here. Suppose you had a planter, 5-sided planter, and you wanted to put a foot on it. What I've done is I've cut out 3" by a 1/2 inch. I'm sorry, 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch little feet here. And I'm going to show you a little trick. I have a 36 degree corner tool here. I'm going to cut these off at 36 degrees. Score and slip it. I should say just score and wet it, really. And put this together into a 5-sided foot. Like so. Put that up here. Mark it off where it goes. Now, score it, wet it. And stick it on here, and you have a nice 5-sided planter with a foot raising it up off the table. Now, if you want to know this technique, there's other videos on my channel that'll go into much better detail on how to do this. But see how simple that was? Nice foot. It'll stand up off the ground. Well, that's the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't limit yourself. There's tons of ways to do things. You don't have to just trim your pots all the same as everybody else. Have fun. Experiment. If you like this video, please think about subscribing to our channel. I have over 116, 118 videos, something like that on the channel now, how-to videos. Check it out.